like to bring your sustainability values and your sewing life into closer alignment in 2024? If so, one key area to focus on is materials. Today's episode is the first in a 3-part mini-series on fabric stashes. It's going to help you navigate your relationship with fabric emotionally and practically. In this episode, Check Your Thread listeners share their fabric-related goals for the year ahead. I wonder which ones will resonate with you. So, stick around a few minutes for that. Welcome to Check Your Thread, the podcast that will help you sew more sustainably. My name's Zoe and I'm obsessed with sewing. I've been blogging about it for over 15 years and I'm the creator and host of the popular handmade wardrobe challenge, Me Made May. But, like many people, I've become increasingly concerned about the climate crisis and I'm looking at the way my lifestyle contributes to it. So in this podcast, I'll be nerding out about making clothes whilst exploring how to minimise the negative impact that it may have. I really hope you'll join me in this journey. Hello, gorgeous listener. Happy New Year. So we're back. I hope you've been okay during the last few weeks. It was great to have a couple of weeks off from actively making the podcast, but I was thinking and planning a great deal, and I'm so excited to be back sharing ideas and conversations with you. So let's get into our usual intro topics. Firstly, have you had any chance to do any sewing over the last few weeks? I know that a lot of you are taking part in the Winter of Care and Repair project, as am I. It's given me a much needed nudge to tackle some of the repairs and alterations that have been on my list and in the mending pile for far too long. One particular recent win was remaking the neckline of a previously funnel-necked top into like a more bateau neckline. If you're taking part, I hope you've also been enjoying getting things back into a wearable condition. And if you're not taking part in that particular challenge, I hope you've been able to carve out some time for yourself recently to get creative and push your projects forward. Have you had any non-sewing related sustainability wins recently? I'm claiming a win in that we've managed to avoid too much food waste over the Christmas period. Now, obviously, food waste is a massive problem all year round. And the amount of uneaten food that many households in many countries, including my own, throw away over the festive period is shocking. So it's something that I've tried to stay on top of, and we've managed it fairly well. There were a couple of days when we all had to eat ham for pretty much every meal, and there was another day when we mainly had to eat sausages. But the only item that I can think of that we chucked away in its entirety was a punnet of mushrooms that had gone mouldy before we got to them. Okay, sustainability fails. Right, so this one is particularly embarrassing considering the topic of today's episode. So I don't know why this happened. I'm normally pretty immune to adverts on Instagram. But on Christmas Day, I got caught up in a sale for bed linen. I'm not proud of myself. I can't say that we exactly needed new bed linen, but we all wanted some new bed linen. So my kids have not been able to decorate their bedroom, so I wanted them to have a duvet cover and pillowcase that reflects their current interests and personalities, compared to the sets that they've had up until now that are really for much younger kids. Plus, one of our duvet covers is just about to die. It's one that I've had since my early 20s, so I just wanted to get another replacement set that looked nice. Anyway, I was scrolling, there was an ad for a sale, I got hooked in. But when the items arrived, I found that both the kids' sets of duvet cover and matching pillowcase were made from 52% polyester, albeit recycled, and 48% cotton. I hadn't thought to actually check the fibre content when I was placing my order. But they both love their bedding and I can't bring myself to send them back. Thankfully, the set for our bed is 100% cotton, but I was prepared to send that back if it had included synthetic fibres. So that's my fail. Even though the polyfibres are recycled, energy was still needed to process them back into usable polymers and then into fabric. Plus, every time I wash my kids' bedding, microfibres will be going into the waterways. So you'll know this is particularly annoying when you hear my own goals in today's episode. I know that this time of year can be super expensive for families and individuals, so I'm extra grateful to 5 amazing humans, Katrin, Janie, Mary, Charlie and Vicky, for signing up to support the podcast via Patreon over the last few weeks. As you might have noticed, this is an ad-free podcast, so the only real way that I can cover the costs of making Check Your Thread, including the 20 plus hours a week that I put into it, is via the wonderful support of patrons. And I have to level with you today. As you know, the price of literally everything is going up at the moment. and I can see a point in the near future where I might have to go and do some more paid work elsewhere to help make ends meet, which would probably mean that I couldn't keep putting out episodes on a weekly basis. Now, I really don't want to have to make this podcast fortnightly or put it out in seasons where there's a chunk of the year where there's no episodes at all, and I'm completely committed to my no ads principle. So, if you're not supporting the podcast already and you'd like to keep the frequency of episodes as is, please consider signing up to give a small amount each month. If you don't think you'd miss the price of a cup of coffee each month, then please know that it would make a big difference to my ability to put new episodes in your ears each week. Please find the link to the Patreon in the show notes on your podcast app right now or on the website checkyourthread.com. So, on to today's episode. I love making episodes where you can hear from the Check Your Thread community. It's always so interesting to have various viewpoints and perspectives on the same topic. If you haven't thought about developing your own fabric-related goal for the year ahead, I'm sure that hearing all of these people's plans will help you define and clarify your own. And if you do have some of your own thoughts in place already, I hope that this episode helps you define them even further so they'll be perfectly tailored to your aims and needs. I also want to mention, if one of your fabric goals this year is to get better at picking suitable fabric for your sewing projects, then I have a downloadable guide called Introduction to Garment Fabrics available to buy that will help you fast track your knowledge of garment fabrics. I've popped the link to that in the show notes, or you can find it in the shop section of the website checkyourthread.com. The show notes this week also contain a few relevant links to today's episode. You can also find that on checkyourthread.com. So take care of yourself and your loved ones, have a think about your own fabric goals for the year, and enjoy! So, fabric goals for 2024. As with previous community episodes, I've attempted to confirm everyone's preferred pronouns, and where I haven't, I'll be using they, them pronouns. Sorry if the flitting between is a bit jarring, I think we can handle it. So, these goals are more or less presented to you in the order in which I received them. So, let's kick things off with a recording from repeat guest, my former coach and my pal, Kim Whitten.
Hi Zoe, this is Kim Whitten, and I love this question. So one of my goals for 2024 is to not purchase any new clothing. That is a big goal for me as a new sewist. It's a little bit scary and daunting, but I'm going to find ways to make it work. And so the fabric-related goals for that, it needs to be something around how I approach fabric and how I save fabric and use it, because one of my big reasons for this goal is to save money. And right now, as a new sewist, it's not cost effective for me to be sewing. So I need to flip that around. I need to find ways to make it more cost effective. And that includes improving my skills so that I'm not wasting fabric, reusing and repurposing the fabric that I have. So previously I would donate my old clothes to thrift shops and that sort of thing. And I need to be rethinking that and finding ways to get more resourceful and creative with what I do so that I'm both meeting the goal and saving money and that this is an enjoyable endeavor for me. So I think the actual fabric-related goals will develop over time because I haven't given this a whole lot of thought yet. Just the commitment to this bigger goal of not purchasing clothes next year is quite top of mind. So I'm excited to see how this develops, and I know that you and the podcast and all of the ideas of your many guests and the people around me are going to really help with that. So I'm looking forward to it.
So I am basically obsessed with this challenge that Kim has set herself. It is so bold. I know that Kim is really open to people's ideas and suggestions about how this might work for her. So I'd like to encourage her to really come at this with a sense of fun and adventure. I also think she should build in a few safeguards so that she isn't tempted to throw in the towel if the challenge proves too rigid. For example, if there are some items that she realises she needs that might not be something that she can make or wants to make, a warm winter coat for example, or it would not be cost effective to make because there is a financial aspect to this, could she allow herself to obtain those things second hand? but back to the fun. I'd suggest that she starts her new year with an inventory of the fabric that she already owns, finding a way to catalogue what she already has, maybe using the Stash Hub app or something else, and then come up with some plans that really excite her for each piece. And then if there are pieces that she doesn't like, consider if there are ways she could alter it, like dyeing it, for example, or plan to use it as a lining where it won't be so visible. Kim also talked about using her garments as a potential starting point. As you know, I'm a huge advocate for harvesting fabric and oceans from garments, unless those garments are in tip-top condition and are likely to be wanted and worn by someone else. So I'd like to encourage Kim to investigate some refashioning ideas or scrap busting or clothing made from pieced fabric ideas. There's loads of resources and hashtags out there to see if she can find some inspiration for something that she could try that fits with her aesthetic. I cannot wait to follow along with Kim's challenge and see where it takes her. Right, Cassie has a 2-part goal. Cassie's goals: have a cooling off period before buying fabric. Avoids those impulse buys, especially from our fave Instagrammer. Second part: go through my massive box of fabric made by disassembling clothes and flipping use them, FFS. I'm not sure who Cassie's fave Instagrammer is, but implementing a cooling off period is a great suggestion. Cassie could even temporarily unfollow the Instagram account if it's resulting in some dangerous FOMO. You could also instill the rule that anything that goes into an online cart cannot be checked out until the next day. So you could come back to see if you still really do love it after that initial wave of infatuation. This requires some real self-control though. As for the second part, sounds like Cassie's already settled on a great first step, going through the box to familiarise yourself with what's actually in there. And then, as I suggested to Kim, they could do some research to find some approaches for using scraps and smaller pieces of fabric in ways that excite and inspire them. So this might be a little bit extreme for this situation, but depending on how committed Cassie is to getting through all this fabric already in their possession, Cassie could also sign up to the Last Sewist Standing Challenge. The next round starts in February. Good luck, Cassie! Right, here's Caro's plan. My plan for 2024 is to limit new fabric purchases to 1 or less. I bought 1 piece of new fabric this year, but otherwise used what I already have. I do buy from charity shops. That feels okay for me. I'm very conscious of the UK exporting unwanted textiles to countries that can't deal with it. One of my challenges is that my fabric buying choices have changed over the years, so what I have isn't necessarily what I would choose. What? Caro, you are phenomenal. I'm incredibly impressed that you only bought 1 piece of virgin fabric throughout 2023 and plan to do the same again 2024. So, Caro has an issue that some of the fabric already in their stash is no longer to their taste. I think that this is a reminder to all of us to use the lovely fabric that we own, because tastes and style preferences do change, and you might not always love the fabric that feels so glorious to us in the moment. Consider swapping or selling the fabric that you don't love, or reworking in some way, such as dyeing it. I'd say good luck to Caro, but their track record suggests that they don't actually need it. Here's previous guest Meg Grandstaff.
Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing well. Fabric goals for 2024. I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately, and I think what I'd really love to do is use up some of the pieces of fabric in my stash that have taken on that mythic quality. They've been in my stash so long that they're never going to be used because now they're officially too nice. I've had them too long, and they're just languishing away. I'd love to use those pieces to make things that are desperately missing from my wardrobe, like slips or undershirts or shirt dresses or the ever popular ginger jeans that I oh so desperately need. So 2024 is going to be the year of basics for me, and in the process, disrupting the myths I have created in my own head. Love you. Hope you're well. Chat soon. Bye.
Well, this amazing goal of Meg's is reminding us of another thing that can happen when we keep fabric for too long. Caro's previous message warned us that we might fall out of love with a piece of fabric when our tastes change. But here Meg is reminding us that it can go the other way. Fabric can become too precious to use. I've definitely fallen foul of that before. It's a waste and it doesn't feel good. So instead of stashing that fabric away in a cupboard or drawer, if you actually sewed it up into a lovely garment, you could get so much regular pleasure from that fabric being on your body and in your wardrobe. Especially if you decide to do what Meg is planning, making basics that will see lots and lots of use. I cannot wait to follow along with this, Meg. Okay, another two-parter, this time from Sarah. Hi Zoe, I have 2 fabric goals for 2024. 1, go through it. Label it up and make a list of what I bought it for / will use it for and use that first. Do not get drawn into shiny new fabric. Number 2, when I'm recycling something, think about what else it could be used for and either keep it for that use or pass it on. I have many things saved just in case. I need to be more purposeful in my choices. I love that Sarah's considering both what's coming into their home / wardrobe / stash and what's leaving it. When you're starting any kind of challenge, it's a really good idea to take stock of the situation, and in this case, taking stock of the fabric you already own. There are obviously so many methods of cataloguing and organising your fabric, so good luck, Sarah, in finding what works for you. Plus, as Sarah is reminding us, it's so important to acknowledge that having a clear out and sending things away doesn't mean that those things then disappear. We're just making those items someone else's problem. But there are a lot of fun ways to reuse what can't ethically be donated. Finding uses for what we already have can be a real source of fun, and I hope that's how she experiences this goal of hers as well. So, Lois has a similar concern and has come up with a solution of sorts, plus an exciting personal challenge that builds on that.
Hi Zoe and Check Your Thread listeners. My name is Lois of Light Factory Productions. I'm coming to you from traditional Coast Salish territory on the west coast of Canada, better known as Vancouver. Thank you for your New Year challenge. I've been trying to develop ways of managing textile waste at home in order to reduce textile donations or disposal and eventual incineration. All current textile disposal options are woefully unsustainable and intensively damaging to the environment, as well as damaging to textile economies in the majority world. I've been reviewing the impact of the secondhand clothing trade on African cities and have been realizing how ineffective nearly all clothing donation options are here in Canada. It's really motivated me to make much more careful use of textiles and to consider disposal more deliberately. One way I manage textile waste is to stuff cushion forms with the waste generated by my home sewing and from no longer usable cloth items around the house. These forms become hefty yoga bolsters, meditation cushions, and dog beds. But lately I've been thinking that this process only avoids toxic waste disposal for the time the cushion is usable. Once it's soiled or irreparable, it will need to go to the landfill or be incinerated because it is filled with mixed and unknown fibers that cannot be recycled. As a next step then, for 2024, I aim to make a biodegradable cushion from natural fibers so that it can eventually be composted instead of incinerated or stuffed into a garbage dump. This is inspired in part by the way you promote non-petroleum-based fabric and thread options on the podcast, especially recently with your guest, the haberdashery supplier Richard Mendham. Taking on the process of separating the waste, natural from synthetic, will motivate me to use more biodegradable materials, such as thread, which so far hasn't been my practice. So thank you for that nudge. I wonder if I'll fill one natural fiber cushion in 2024, or maybe more. Thank you so much, Zoe, for all you do to motivate sewers to take responsibility for the impact of textile production and manufacturing and disposal. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
How good is that? Lois, you've really encouraged me to double down on one of my own goals relating to fibre types, which I'll share more about at the end. But please report back at the end of the year and let us know how you got on and how many entirely biodegradable cushions you created. Right, let's hear Polly's plans.
Well, Zoe, hi, it's Polly, and I'm in Portland, Oregon, USA. I would say my fabric goals for 2024 are not to buy any. I have quite a bit of a stash. You guys talk about your stashes being, oh, I've had it for 3 years. I've had some fabric for 20 years. Not all the pieces, but some pieces. Plus, I have quite a few thrifted garments that I've been buying and taking apart, and they're ready to make things. So all that is left is for me to complete my master patterns. I'm doing specific fitting for t-shirts, jeans, dress pants, woven button-up shirt, jacket, and that's all. Finish those and then start cutting out and making things. Thanks for asking, and I look forward to all the programs you have in store for us. Thanks.
So, Polly, you also have 2 challenges going on here, don't you? 1, to not buy new fabric, and 2, to perfect your master patterns. Polly's been sharing with me a bit about this process of creating master patterns to help achieve really excellent fitting garments. Polly is clearly intending to make clothes that will see a lot of use for a long period of time after all the work that's going into this. I wonder if Polly needs some extra accountability to achieve the not buying new fabric part, if they'd benefit from signing up to this year's Lasso Standing Challenge. Anyway, next week's episode goes into that challenge in great depth, so that should help anyone who's on the fence about whether or not it's for them. Okay, previous guest Amy Dice is up.
Hello, Check Your Thread folk. It's Amy here from Craft and Thrift, and my fabric goals for 2024 are to try to be more structured with how I plan my sewing projects. So I started at the end of 2023 to plan seasonally, so planning my autumn-winter sewing projects. And I'm giving myself 6 months for that because 3 months seems like too short a period of time for the kind of projects that I'm investing time in just now. Quite big things like trousers and possibly a coat that I know are going to take me more than 3 months. I quite like this way of planning, sewing for the seasons, but also the way I planned it was I followed a blog post from the Modern Sewing Company where she took fabric swatches and compared them to her current wardrobe to make sure that the items she was sewing would fit with her current wardrobe. And I thought that was really clever because I'm quite bad for sewing things that ultimately end up becoming wardrobe orphans. So I got out all my sort of favourite, most frequently worn trousers, t-shirts, tops, that kind of thing, and then the fabric that I wanted to work with. And I eliminated some of the fabrics on the basis that I think they would become wardrobe orphans. And then I picked 4 pieces of fabric that I wanted to work with over the next 6 months. And then an extra project was also snuck in there because I've realised as the temperatures dropped that I need a wool coat. So I'm going to sew myself a wool coat as well. But that method of planning has really sort of honed me in on sort of the colours, the types of fabric I want to work with, the type of projects I want to do over the next 6 months, which has helped curtail my sort of shiny thing syndrome where I can sort of jump from project to project, getting excited about the new project without actually finishing off the old project first. In amongst all this, I'll still be sewing little things for gifts, things I need around the house, that kind of stuff. So it's not like this sewing plan is my only plan for the next 6 months, but it just gives me a bit more structure so that my projects actually end up being things that I want and need and fit in my wardrobe and that ultimately I'll end up wearing. Thanks so much to Zoe for an amazing podcast and another great episode. I'm looking forward to listening to this one, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye.
Sounds like Amy is really getting stuck into some big, hefty projects like nailing trouser fitting and making a coat. I love that she's giving herself a big window of time to get into that and not putting pressure on herself to churn stuff out at a rapid rate. I also love the suggestion that Amy has taken on board from the Modern Sewing Co., which was to use fabric swatches to make sure the items will pair well with what you already own. I've linked to that blog post in the show notes if you want to check it out yourself. It all sounds super considered and well thought out and sustainable on a personal level, particularly because Amy's also allowed for some quicker fun projects in there too. Happy sewing, Amy. Now it's Catherine's turn.
Hi Zoe, I'm Catherine. I'm a doctor that likes making things, sewing things, clothes and quilts and things. My fabric goals for the next year just to use what I've got, try and not buy things just because they look nice. I suppose the same as everyone else. And also, you've reminded me to sell the fabric that I'm not going to use. And yeah, I don't need to wait till next year to do that. I should do this today. Thanks for reminding me. Thanks for your podcast.
Catherine, you are clearly already on this. I hope that the fabric selling has been going well. I really like how Catherine is committed to not only getting the fabric she doesn't want out of her home, where it's just gathering dust, but she's taking active steps to get it into the hands of other people who do want it, because she's selling it rather than donating it to a charity shop and keeping her fingers crossed that it doesn't just get shredded or sent to landfill. I'd also like Catherine to think about how she might keep to the first part of her plan, the using what she already has and not getting distracted by all the new pretty fabric. So Catherine, are you an abstainer or a moderator? So by that I mean, do you do better with complete bans? You don't even have to think about that thing again. If so, maybe signing up to the Last Sewer Standing could be a fun way to gamify this commitment, and you'll have a nice supportive community. Or are you a moderator who is less likely to rebel or cave in if you're allowed a little of the good stuff now and again? In that case, maybe Catherine could implement a self-imposed rule such as a 3 in 1 out rule, where if she uses up 3 pieces of fabric, she's allowed to buy 1 new piece. Or give yourself a yearly limit, such as 6 pieces all year, or whatever number makes sense in relation to the current sewing output. Good luck, Catherine. Let us know what you decide and how you choose to implement these goals. Right, I'm going to read out Louise's goal, then we'll hear Norma's goal before responding because spookily they're quite similar. So this is Louise. My fabric goals are to get even more critical about what I'm buying. I'm already considering fibre content, shopping my stash and buying for specific projects, but I also want to get more realistic with my purchases. I only have a certain amount of time to sew, for example, and I'd like to see if I can get D-Stash or other second-hand textiles.
Hello Zoe, this is Norma. Lots of your podcasts have taken me deep into the world of rescuing resources, second-hand materials, clothes, etc. I've loved all those sorts of podcasts and I've put many of the suggestions into action. Thank you very much.
Louise, sounds like you're already implementing heaps of important steps to sewing more sustainably. I am super impressed. And Norma, I love your commitment to using what's already in existence, including second-hand garments. At this point, we all know that charity shops and thrift stores receive way too many donations than they can handle, and the stock that does make it onto the shop floor is often rotated at a really rapid rate to give it all a chance at selling. So as long as you're not going to buy plus-sized items, which can be harder to source by people who would want to use them in their current form, at this point, I think it's generally accepted that if you're actually going to sew with rather than stash the items you're buying, thrifted clothing is absolutely fair game to buy for sewing projects. So I'm wondering if Louise and Norma feel like they need to set themselves up some sort of framework that will consider their sewing output as well as the obtaining of second-hand textiles. I was going to suggest a 1 in 1 out situation, similar to my suggestion for Catherine previously. This is trickier though compared to buying pure virgin fabric on a project by project basis. The thing about D-Stash sales and finding 50 items, stuff like that, you don't know when they're likely to appear. So when you do see something secondhand that you love, you really do just have to snap it up, don't you? So I'm not entirely sure what I am suggesting here, but I do think that keeping some kind of log of what secondhand textiles are coming in is going to make the most sense here. And then if you find that your sewing output is lagging behind the amount of items coming in, then maybe try to avoid the charity shops and D-Stash accounts for a while. But I do think that some kind of tracker, the Stash Hub app perhaps, might be key to sticking to these goals. Good luck, Louise and Norma. Right, another previous guest, Liz Hayward, has a simple but important goal. Liz says, I'm planning a New Year's review and edit of my sizable fabric collection, as I tend to forget what's in there and it will refresh my memory. She adds, sorry this isn't a voice note, Zoe, you'll have to read it out with an Aussie accent instead. No one wants to hear me attempt an Aussie accent, I promise you. Right, Liz, what I want to know is, do you intend to implement some kind of cataloguing and or organisational system after this sort out? Also, what are you going to do with the stuff that you don't want? Inquiring minds need to know, Liz. Right, here is the last goal from the community. This is Marie's multi-layered goal.
Hi, I'm Marie, a listener from San Francisco. This year, Zoe introduced me to the Last Zoa Standing Challenge, which was surprisingly intense, but in a good way. That, along with some other life changes, encouraged me to address what might have been an unhealthy relationship with my fabric stash. For that challenge, my main goal was to end the year with my fabric contained in only my designated storage areas. I'm proud to report that I'm almost there. For the year ahead, my fabric goals are, first, keep that stash contained. Shop my fabric stash first. Then, only buy fabric for specific projects that I'm going to complete in the very near future. And only buying enough fabric for that specific project. I used to buy extra fabric in case I messed up, but I'm feeling more reassured that if I start the project as soon as I get the fabric, then I can almost always get more should I mess up. Second, I would like to address any fabric that has been in my stash longer than 10 years. I've already gotten rid of about 20 yards of fabric this year at a fabric swap that I organized. But I'd like to dig deeper and either use those fabrics that I've had for so long or figure out a way to get it to someone who would use it. Lastly, I would like to figure out how to deal with what Zoe calls scraps that defy the laws of physics. And that's it. Good luck to everyone with their fabric-related goals in 2024. And thanks to Zoe for the inspiration.
Marie, I think that using up your physical space to determine what is enough fabric makes a lot of sense. But as you know, rules of physics seem not to always apply to fabric stashes, or at least not to scraps. But Marie is using time as well as space to navigate fabric ownership here too. She's made a great point. If you don't wait around to use the fabric you've just bought, if something does go awry, it's very likely that that fabric will still be available and you can get some more. Yet another argument for using what you have in a timely fashion and not allowing it to develop some kind of mythical, untouchable status like the fabric that Meg has been talking about. It's also a good reminder to maybe make a toile or muslin if you're making a new to you pattern, so you don't have to buy more fabric because it's less likely to go wrong. Some basic toiling fabric, such as thrifted bedsheets, will be cheaper and have less of an environmental impact than having to buy double the amount of yardage of your preferred fabric. And I love that Marie organised a fabric swap to offload some of the stuff that she didn't want. You don't have to hang around for a fabric swap to magically appear. You can make it happen for yourself. And it's also an opportunity to have a fun social time, rather than having to photograph and list each piece of fabric for sale online. Okay, this leads me to my own fabric-related goals for 2024. So I'm starting the year still participating in the Last Zoa Standing Challenge. So that means for me, I'm not going to be buying any new fabric at all until February the 14th. So I must explain that the most recent round of the challenge officially finished on the 31st of December 2023, but I went into the challenge mistakenly thinking it was for one calendar year, so I want to see that through. But after that, I'm going to allow myself to buy a limited amount of new fabric during the rest of the year. Each purchase must be made with a clear project in mind, if not a specific pattern, and I'll only buy the quantity needed for that project. I must then use the purchased fabric within a decent window of time so it doesn't just become another piece of fabric languishing in my stash. I don't think I actually need to put a number on the amount of pieces if I'm sticking to all these rules carefully. I am allowed to buy thrifted textiles without a clear project plan if I genuinely can see myself using and wearing it. I also plan to move away from synthetic fibres where at all possible. There will be occasions where it'll be necessary to fulfill the goals that I really want to do. For example, I want to make a pair of black ginger jeans. But beyond that, I will really be carefully considering what fibres I'm buying when I'm planning my other projects. Plus, this isn't really fabric, but fibre related. I will continue to move towards tencel or cotton thread instead of polyester thread for sewing and overlocking. And lastly, continue to create projects that incorporate fabric scraps and leftovers and share them to inspire others. Okay, ginormous thanks to everyone who took the time to respond to my prompt and share their fabric goals for 2024. I intend to contact some of those lovely contributors towards the end of this year so we can hear how they got on with those plans. And if these contributions have got you thinking about your own fabric goals and you want someone to tell, I am all ears. You can email me, zoe@checkyourthread.com, or you can find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and are left feeling inspired. For more info about the podcast, including show notes for this and every episode, head to checkyourthread.com. I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, questions or ideas for future episodes, please get in touch by emailing zoe@checkyourthread.com or find me on Instagram @checkyourthread. Massive thanks to Patrick Potter for production support, to Sylvia Seller for the awesome logo design, and to Simon at Palm Skin Productions for the music. This ad-free podcast would not be possible without listener support, so if you feel you are able, please consider signing up to the Check Your Thread Patreon. For the equivalent of buying me a coffee each month, you'll be making it possible to continue producing regular episodes. Links can be found in the show notes and on the website checkyourthread.com. I hope you'll listen again next week. Until then, take care. Bye!